crest a low hill in the forest, finding it lit by scattered hellfire. In the center, a demon of the old world unfurls its wings, welcoming you to your last breath.
Welcome to Zero Means You're Dead, our indie gaming show here on the Go Indie Now Network. I'm SM Hillman, Sean Hillman to my friends, speculative fiction writer, game designer, and I have a lot of opinions on games, as you know. Specifically, we're always talking about indie games, and we're here at JordanCon this weekend where a couple of really great things happened. First, there was another build a RPG game here panel, like we had at Multiverse, and the Multiverse game that was designed there was played here at JordanCon. So if you don't think that indie games get played, they do, absolutely. In a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from Bob McGough, and I interviewed Bob a few months ago talking about one-page rules and one-page games and his experience with role-playing games. But I just wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about the convention experience. Here at JordanCon, I run the sci-fi track, and it's a little bit different than running gaming, although we definitely talked about games and game-adjacent things here. We focused a lot on big franchises, but we also focused on some indie material as well. And conventions really are a great space for you to lose yourself and play some great games, and to try to find people. If you have a cool indie game that you want to try and people won't try it, people at conventions love to try new games. So I'm just going to double down on things I think I said before and say, you know what, hey, go to conventions and do your games there, especially independent games, right? I also think it's really makes me feel good to see that game design is something that's being talked about in non-regular game design spaces now. It's two conventions that I've been at now that we've built a game, or some other people have built a game. I was not involved in either case. But it's something I think that taps into a need. There are a lot of new writers, but there are also a lot of new game designers, people who've been all their life. Last night I had a conversation with a young man who he and his friends built a kind of post-apocalyptic corporate grocery store chain. I won't say the one, so I don't want to all get in trouble. And they put some game mechanics, dicing mechanics to it. They created themselves a fantastic post-apocalyptic sci-fi role-playing game that apparently they're enjoying quite a bit. Just to sum up my villain monologue, find yourself a convention, go there, play games, introduce people to the games that you want to play, and talk about design, talk about the way you design things. It's always time to go indie now, and coming up, Bob McGough.
Okay. Yeah, extinction event. Time period, because an extinction event does not have to be like Mesozoic.
Throughout the game, get your elements together.
Yeah.
So one thing I think we do need to figure out is if we want this to be cooperative or competitive.
I love a co-op.
I love co-op games. I'm a weenie. I don't like competitive games, so I will always vote co-op. But I can be persuaded because I'm tired.
Well, it could be both. I'm thinking. So what if your goal is you have to get enough survival points, whatever that is, to survive the event. So like, and maybe different events have different thresholds. Like maybe it's just a volcanic explosion and you gotta have 7 points to survive that, but a meteor is 10 points. And so, but maybe by working together, it makes it easier to get points.
But you can also
steal points. So it could go either way. I know how my friend group would do that. There would be no talk of cooperation. It'd be how can I steal all of Bob's points every time.
And
Every time.
let's lead this into a design question here. Let me phrase it like this: do we want this game to be have limited resources, or basically a way for players to indefinitely farm resources? Because this does change the play a lot. Because if you want a competitive game, you need limited resources so that they're fighting over the limited resources, the survival points or whatever.
It could be that the limited resource is just time.
What about something like, what if you had time portals and you could actually go to different extinction events, but the goal, one of the goals, is like a butterfly effect thing. You're trying to do something to forestall the extinction event somewhere down the timeline.
Ooh.
Yeah,
So
you heard the group gasp.
So not only so and what I'm thinking is sort of a mechanic similar kind of this, like in Munchkin when you have the dungeon cards and you switch everything.
Yeah.
Maybe something similar to that. But I think the notion of like dashing through, something that's 10,000 years in the future, back to dinosaurs, back to another, all these different events.
Characters can all be from different time periods, so they all have different strengths and weaknesses. So like, the person who's from the future brings more ability to create resources, sort of like you were talking about. But then you can also have like a literal dinosaur who might not have a lot of smarts, but is going to just brute force through a problem.
Tiny hands with big teeth.
Yeah, thank you. People do say that about me. Where things get harder and real.
Yeah, the mechanics is like a skeleton.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a body without.
Yeah, so
I
like.
do like the idea of the timeline. That you're
Yes.
timeline.
Yeah.
So your victory
Yes.
condition should be how well does the end timeline meet what you were trying for initially.
Yeah, maybe
whatever
you have
extinction event you're trying to
you have
avoid.
X
or whatever.
number of portals
And the
that
whole
you
trader's
can do.
point is to try to steer it away from that.
Yes.
So that he gets all of his points. Whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my thought is there needs to be some sort of mechanic in the game that if you think someone is a traitor, you can maybe try and but the problem with that is you don't want to have a mechanic that is, oh, well, we're voting them off the team, they can't
Yeah,
play
they
anymore,
can't.
because then they just have to sit there,
Yeah,
It's got to be a mechanic that allows them to continue to play, but some sort of, like maybe they get to draw one less card in the next round or something, maybe, or so they can still play, but that also incentivizes them to, well, I can't always choose the bad thing,
Yeah.
I've got to sell it, that I am
Well,
a
if there's
good guy.
another mechanic to where, in a sense, you're playing against the game, it's a randomness, then if you do uncover the traitor, maybe it then just becomes a part of the game, playing versus you. It's no longer a player, and then that person gets to choose another character as another agent.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, you could just draw another card and
Yeah.
then maybe you're still a traitor.
Yeah, you could be a traitor again.
What is it?
Distill me!
I thought you got rid of me. Oh, I just put on a new act and fooled you.
I do love the idea that, oh, you caught the traitor, but
Yeah.
they can still be the traitor.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
What is it? If like you want to essentially make a random element, you can either start with a bunch of cards that you lay out in a line. Basically, that's the bad timeline that you're trying to prevent. Or you could basically do it to where you draw a card to lay it down to like show the bad thing that's happening here. Either way, it starts off with a random chaotic event that basically the card draw does that, and you have some mechanism to influence that.
And if we want to like secret trader situation, having a hand that you can play, then I mean that does give you that opportunity to be like, yeah, this is absolutely the best card that I have.
Yeah, oh, I have the doctor card. I have a doctor. I
Yeah,
can
and
help this person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's individual hands could be drawn from the whole deck, not just one suite. But what you're playing is just the one suite.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to match it. But if you can't / don't wanna.
Yeah.
Are motivated not to.
Yeah. What about y'all? Y'all have any thoughts? Any elements that we should be adding in here?
Perhaps there's a rule that the trader is allowed to play whatever they wish, like, they're allowed to break that rule while others have to, like, stick to.
I mean, then you know that they're a trader. They
That's
know
true.
themselves.
Could be
That's
that
true.
could
They
be
can-
grass.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
I'm
reveal
outing myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. That'd be too
Yeah,
obvious.
this card is too good to pass
But-
up. I'm outing myself.
But maybe you don't care. Maybe you do, because at the end of the game, you don't play this type of game to win as much as you play it to tell a good story.
Right.
So maybe it is like, oh man, I've been playing the trader this long. It'd be really cool to reveal myself now in this big,
Poison, Whole Food supply,
screw
everyone's
you all,
starved now.
screw you all moment. And now I'm going to draw a new character.
Okay,
What if it was like Uno, where if you only had the one card left, like you say, I don't have that suit, so I'm playing the suit, and then everybody has to follow and play that suit, and then you can level the intrigue more.
Your hand.
Have you guys, anybody played Battlestar Galactica? So, like, the idea of contributing toward a number to do something, maybe that could be a mechanic that we So you have to reach a certain number to resolve it one way versus the other. So, and like you could be contributing. You contribute, for those who haven't played, it'll be something like, oh, these things are gonna come attack us, and we need to, or we want to throw someone in the brig. To do it, you have to put in, we have to get to a certain number, and so you could be throwing in low cards or high cards, and you don't know because you do it anonymously, like in
And
your
shuffle
center.
them?
Yeah, and then you just like kind of read them. So you
Like,
could-
did we get enough points
Did we
to
get enough
actually kill the
points?
monster or whatever?
If you are the trader and you
And that's a
wanna,
good way to
shoot
randomize the
someone,
timeline.
I love that. So every card, as you're like from the center deck, you flip it, is like, okay,
It's an event.
here's an
Yeah.
event, and we've got to get this many points
Yeah, you could
for it to
do
go off well.
Red versus black, like red contributes, black subtracts.
Oh.
And when you're talking, like, so because it's cooperative, everyone can be like, oh, I really don't have any black. I can't help with this. And you could totally be lying and be like shoving all the black ones in there.
Yeah. So, but then also what you could do to kind of keep it a little even for the trader, so that they don't quickly run out of their cards. You could have it to where maybe there is maybe some of the cards like, oh, to make this happen, we have to get positive 10 points. But maybe for this one, we've got to kill this. We've got to kill Hitler. So it's negative 10 points that we have to accumulate.
This is a math game at this point.
Oh God!
Where you
Not the it
That's the
works.
thing.
you have
The
to get
primary-
exactly 13 points. So you have to play subtractions. You have to play additions. Like you have to get a specific number.
Mm.
I mean, as long as we're playing with math, I think we could also aid from the Power by the Apocalypse system of these true success, mixed success, and failure.
Failures.
Yeah. So like spot on the number would be like nat 20.
Yeah. Or like if you're below the number but still, or like close, like if you're within 3, it's a limited success. If it's equal to, it's a good success. If you beat it, it's a really good success. And then that could maybe because maybe it's a project that gives you 2 survival points.
Yeah.
But if you really knock it out of the park, it's 3 survival points.
This is a little bit off track of what y'all were just discussing, but
We're not on a track. We're
Sometimes you get 2 really bad choices. Like that, neither one of them is good, but you have to like choose the best out of like a bad set, and that's really the appeal of this kind of game, because it's kind of meant to be tragedy anyway. But if we tweak that a little bit and make it to where, let's say, even our good scenarios are our bad scenarios, higher the number, the worse the event is going to be for like your desired outcome. So like if you have a 10 of spades versus a 7 of spades, you know, you can differentiate that quickly on a glance, and you have to basically play one. But if you're the trader, you know, you basically in secret draw these two, play the worst one, versus if you're not, you played the better one, and then you can always be like, oh, sorry guys, it was between a 7 and a 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're not drawing cards face up in this version. You'd be.
What if we did both? We can look. A deck of cards is not that hard to acquire. We could mandate that every person has to have a deck of cards. And so what if the card flips in the middle, but then everyone divides their deck into suits, right? Because we're in era 1. And you face down play a card to bid on if you want to resolve the effect. And whoever bids the highest card, they get to resolve the effect. So if you're like, ooh, I'm the trader, I could really do something with this, you play like you're king face down, and then everyone else, they bid, and if you have the high bid, you get to do the card. So that could could kind of. And I'm not a math guy.
You're a meth guy.
I'm a meth guy. I'm from South Alabama. Lower your expectations, people. I think that you would still pretty much be able to guarantee that most people would get a pretty even amount of play by doing that. I would think.
Yeah. The trick is to make sure the trader can do something plausibly of, oh, no, I'm trying to help.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have 3 kings in my hand. This is all I've got. We're only playing for one suit, you liar!
I'm here tonight with Bob McGough, writer, one-page game designer, and author of the Jubal County Saga, which you can find on Amazon. Also, check out his latest work, Southern Saudade. Bob, tell us a little bit about that.
I call it a breakup playlist in book form because the unifying theme is romance, but like sad, disappointing, ended poorly romance, usually due to supernatural means. So it's got some horror tropes, it's got some urban fantasy, it's got some romance, but not enough of any one of those genres to make the genre fans happy. So it's that perfect unmarketable book.
Perfect. Love it. How long have you been writing the Jubal County Saga?
I've been writing it for, I would say, what is it, 2024 now? Oh God. For a little over 6 years now, I guess. And I've been publishing them since 2021, I believe.
Let's talk a little bit about the RPGs, because you do design one-page RPGs. How many have you designed so far?
Over 30. I don't have an exact count because I don't remember how many I've published. I have some just sitting around in varying states of finished, not finished, don't have covers, never got published, that kind of deal. So right. Between 30 and 40.
We'll get into how you got into one-page design a little bit later. But can you tell folks a little bit about the game that you ran for Hit the Dice for us?
Yeah. So I am a longtime D&D player. That was I had rule books before D&D, but never got to play because I lived in the middle of nowhere. So D&D was my first real exposure to tabletop gaming, and so much of that is dungeons, obviously, and people going into the dungeons. And so I decided to make a game called Mount Mayhem, which is all the mounts of the adventurers that have been left outside the dungeon, and an adventure ensues with them. And you basically roll to see what hero you belong to. You roll to see what type of mount you are, whether it be a horse or a mule or a riding dog or an elk. Mount Mayhem. I'll read us the intro real quick. The entrance to the dungeon lies before you, a dank, ominous entrance to the world below, filled with giant spiders, eldritch horror, and devious traps. Man, your owners were idiots to go inside. You're real glad you get to sit out here and eat this tasty grass instead. So, y'all are not the adventurers. You are the mounts of the adventurers, and you're just chilling outside this dungeon. So,
I'm not that kind of girl.
So, to get this started, we got to figure out what kind of mount are you? And in a normal game, you would just roll the d6 and we'd see, if we get multiple of the same thing, we would just roll with it. But we're going to do it. We'll go in reverse order this time. We'll let Jim roll first. But
Ooh.
if we have duplicates, we'll re-roll so that each person gets to be something different. All right, so Jim, give me a d6 roll and let's see what kind of mount you are.
I am rolling for a d6 and I got a 6.
You are a big horse.
He
The
certainly
hat, I came complete with a hat, and I've been usually called a big ass.
There we go. Eerily appropriate. All right. Jessica, why don't you give us a d6 roll and let's see what you
Alrighty, let's see what we do here. I got a 4.
You are a ram. There we go.
Okay. Typecasting.
If y'all haven't picked up by this point, the tone of this game is definitely more on the silly side of things. All right, Karina, what do you got?
I got a 4 as well, so I'll throw again.
Yep.
I got a 5.
You're an elk.
And that's what I wanted. Look at that.
Oh,
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect. The dice are in your favor.
They are.
All right. And you kind of just roll for shenanigans to see like what is kind of the major plot of this session. And then you just go.
There's 2 guys ahead, 2 probably hunters by the looks of them. They've got weapons. They look a bit out of it, maybe drunk. Certainly didn't see me standing there. What do you want to do? Shall we find, go round? Shall we go up to them?
How much booze they got?
I saw a flask.
I mean,
So-
we could go around them and attack them and make sure they don't hunt anybody else out. They sound like they'd be easy pickings, and then he could get his drink if he really wanted to.
So we'll
I'm not
attack
above
them, yeah?
getting them. Yeah, let's attack them. Why not?
All right, let's do this.
Charge!
I love
Charge!
it. Okay. I love this. All right. So the 3 of y'all charge. I want how about each of you give me a roll, and I'm going to do a little roll. I assume y'all are not at all trying to be quiet. You're just going for
We're
it,
going
right?
for it, yeah.
If I ever looked
I'm a
quiet,
ram.
Yeah,
There's no
charge.
sneaking from
stealth
me,
is
man.
not, as I roll a 1.
All right. All right.
I got a
hey,
5.
A 5?
I got a 2.
Okay. So, I mean, as long as it's odd, it is absolutely a success. So I'm going to say that, you know what? We never gave your characters names, I feel really
Oh,
bad
I
about
named
that.
mine.
Oh, okay.
Ellie.
Ellie,
the elk.
Jessica, Ellie the elk. I like it.
Mine is Brahmanya, but just
Yep.
call her Manya.
Manya. Okay. Jim.
Mine's glue bait.
Blue
All right.
Bay. Okay.
All right.
Your owner loved you, man.
Yeah.
He was an ass.
Yep.
All right. So Gluebait and Ellie, y'all kind of quickly take the front. Manya
Yeah.
is really not built for speed, really built for just like that endurance kind of deal. So the elk and the horse kind of quickly take the lead, and y'all are essentially on these guys before they even realize it. One, you see one as y'all are riding up has like the flask to his lips, and he turns like, what? And the other guy was taking a leak on a tree and has his back to you, and
Oh, I get him with my antler.
and he kind of like he like whips around. So he pretty quickly grabs up his stick, and the one with the flask, he was the one with the bow and arrow, but with the flask in his hand, the bow is kind of leaned up against a stump, so he's got these arrows, and he like quickly tries to like fish out an arrow to like thrust at y'all. So this is not a game with hit points. This is not a game with stats. This game is not serious enough for anything like that. So combat is really not a I swing and they swing back. It's really you just kind of roll, tell me what you're doing, and then I will roll against you, and whoever scores highest, what they say happens. And if you just do really, really, really bad, you're probably going to get knocked out or something to that effect. But we're here to have fun. We're not here to all die against two hunters in a shrub. So
The session was a lot of fun when I watched it. Do you think the players had a good time?
I think so. We talked about it after, and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's do that one again." So at some point, maybe we'll get all them back together and do a second session to see, where their characters wound up in the future.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think Hit to Dice can do a sequel session sometime this year.
Yeah.
But so you talked about D&D a little bit. What was your first RPG? Was it Dungeons and Dragons?
So the first books I ever had were old Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I to this day still one of my absolute favorite settings. Have still never actually played it many years later, but I loved the world so much, and me and my best friend, we made characters repeatedly, but we never had a concept of what a tabletop RPG actually would look like. This is really before YouTube was a thing, so
right. Yep.
This would have been like 2000 is probably when I bought my first role-playing game. But 2003, fall of 2003, I was starting college and went to a party, my first real college party, and being the nerd that I am, encountered a guy who was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, oh, you like nerdy stuff? You should come play in our D&D campaign." So yeah, most folks would have, gone flirting or dancing or something like that. I found the nerdy guys in the corner and planned my first D&D session.
a lot of people ended up that way in college. I know I did for sure.
Yeah.
It was it's a great way to pass the time, but it's also it's just, I've been to a lot of conventions, but the most unique players I've ever run into were the ones in college.
Oh yeah, and that's actually how I got my first roommate off campus.
Mm-hmm.
Was those guys who invited me to play. A guy there who they had, I can't even remember how they met the guy, but he was looking for a roommate. And when my freshman year was up, I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'll move in with you." And he happened to be running another session where I met the guy who became my best friend through college, who ended up going on to marry like one of my best friends from high school, and like we're still like great friends now 20 years later. So it was that one chance D&D session really did a lot more to shape the direction of my life than most things.
Whenever we talk to people about their stories, that just does typically happen, right? It's that crowd of people that grows slowly over time to people that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and then relationships happen.
Yeah.
I think the idea that the nerds laid is totally incorrect.
Yeah.
For the experience
now, to be fair, I was one of those that wasn't. But that passed, and I will say, yeah, that is definitely not the case. I would, yes, we'll leave that one there.
Right. So, what was the first RPG that you designed? Doesn't mean published or anything like that. Just the first time you said, you know what, I can make a game that is better, different, more what I want.
The first D&D book I bought was 3.0, and the second book I bought was 3.5. Like, I started playing right as they switched over. And so that was the heyday of the D20 license. And me and my friends decided that, hey, there's no reason why we couldn't start a D20 company. I mean, there was a million reasons why we, in particular, could not have started a D&D company at that point in any of our lives. But in theory, there's nothing holding us back. So I have always been intensely interested in noble houses and feuding. I think I probably read Dune way too young, and it has forever shaped that interest. And so we decided to make a book for. It was going to be just a system of nobility, like all the noble houses mapped out, their cadet branches, and what their area of focus was, and that you could just take it and drop it into your world, and then we would have classes and prestige classes and feats and stuff that would key off of that. We got as far as me actually like listing out all the noble houses, and I think we worked up a noble class.
Okay.
And that was really the bulk of it, because then I got sidetracked into just world building, as I do, and did a ton of world building, and so that never really went anywhere after that. So decided to get married was more important, and then I decided that getting divorced was more important, and what even is a game,
Right, exactly. Who cares about that minor stuff?
Right.
Life is happening. Do you think, because there were many World of Darkness games, right? Do you think there'd ever be a Drupal County Saga, the RPG?
Yes, there will be. It will. I've actually started work on it in a couple of different ways. I really like Morkborg. So I have made a little bit of Morkborg rule set content. I call it, my main character is Howard Marsh, so I call it Marshborg. But I made a couple monsters, a character class, Methgician, and so made a little bit of content there. But the main thing that I did was I also really like the Troika rule set.
Okay. Yep.
And I've actually made a lot of Troika content for. I kind of settled on. I hadn't played Morkborg yet when I first sat down to do a Jubal County RPG, but I had played Troika, and I really liked Troika. So most of my I've made like probably like 30 classes for it, some monsters, some lore, but with it, because Troika is so kind of that like science fantasy ish, that's not really Jubal County. So I basically made a science fantasy version of Jubal County that's a lot more over the top, and Troika-esque.
Right.
So it would be it's like, if you like kind of the flavoring of Jubal County, that redneck wizardry, but want it mixed with Troika-like science fantasy, that's what it would be. And so what I'll tell you what my my dream is that I make a simple urban fantasy role-playing game, and then invite all my author buddies that write, like John Hartness and Ben Meeks and Alex Nader, and these guys who have Southern urban fantasy characters that, even though they're not all in the same world, could be. And we all make like our character, our class, and we put it in this zine and we just throw it out for the world to enjoy. So
that sounds fantastic.
That will come eventually. What will probably come first will be Troika Marsh. Jubal Troika. Yeah, Jubal Troika, whatever it is. That will probably see the light of day first. And then I'll probably end up doing like the other thing, the main thing I've been doing with like the Morkborg rule set is I'm reimagining SEC football with Eldritch Horror, and like blending the two and using Morkborg rules. So
gotcha.
That's going to be a little zine at some point.
We try to, here in Go Indie Now, the Go Indie Now network, we try to keep things positive, but is there a game, indie or like I call them big boxes, the more traditionally published games, that you just despise? Whether the rules are terrible or the premise is something you just don't like.
I'll say at this point I don't like D&D. I don't despise it. I have too much history with it to despise it.
Right.
I'm just over it. It's like whatever you like about D&D, there's a rule set out there that does it better.
Yep.
And to me, the only thing it has going for it is a lot of people play it, so it's easy to find groups. That's
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've been fortunate with my group. I basically told them, like, I was more or less our forever DM. I get the occasional break, but to be honest, I really like DMing. So I told my guys, is like, I'm just really tired of D&D. There's all these other cool systems. I have let me turn this bookcase that you can see here. That's all RPG books.
Nice.
It's all different. None of those are D&D. The closest thing that's D&D over there was I backed a Kickstarter for someone made a dinosaur setting for D&D. I was like, oh, that's too cool to pass up. But and so I told them, like, guys, I don't want to run it anymore. Would y'all be interested in taking a break from it and letting me try out some other systems on y'all? And they were really cool about it. And we did. And we played a bunch of stuff. Actually, the last thing we played was Morkborg. But we still play a little bit of D&D, but I don't run it anymore. Technically, we're doing Tomb of Annihilation, but the guy who's running that has the most erratic schedule known to man. So we haven't played it in a while. And I'm not... I like playing with it because of the people that I'm with, but I am essentially done with giving Wizards of the Coast my money after all the open gaming license brouhaha last year. That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Agreed. There are a lot of indie companies that are doing 5e content much better, much more in depth, and with that really have a focus for the game. Whereas, not to belabor the point, but Hasbro really just sees it as a money machine. It just turn the wheel and D&D money comes out.
Yeah, and I think that Wizards, within the Hasbro infrastructure, I think that Wizards has, or D&D in particular, has really been punished for not being as successful as Magic. But Magic literally prints money.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
And I feel like kind of higher ups there don't fundamentally understand that there's a difference between the two, and they see that, well, God, Magic sold $800 million last year, and D&D only sold 60 million. They're not doing good. Why are we investing money in this? And it's well, they're two very different things. They are each the 800-pound gorilla in the room for their respective products, and it's unfair to compare one to the other. And so, ugh.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But it's nice because I was listening to Lazy GM earlier today, and he was saying, you can have your 5e content, but you don't have to use wizard stuff, right? You can just do your own thing, and that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So you have a favorite game?
I don't think so, because it's like I have a favorite for different things. Like if I'm just wanting us to blow off some steam and have fun and get ridiculous, we're gonna play Morkborg. I want to do something horror. I'm probably gonna run Dread.
Well,
I say that I have to find a new solution. It would have been Dread, but my players are bizarrely good at Jenga, so which shouldn't be a thing. But the last time we played, only one person died because they were so good at Jenga. So took a lot of the tension out of the game. But so just different games really do appeal for different things. I really, and that said, there's a ton of games. Like I have a million games that I buy the rule set for and have never got to play that I think potentially I would absolutely love. Like I have Wanderhome. I really want to play Wanderhome. I think about half my players just wouldn't really be into it. The other half would. And the other half would go along with it, but I'd rather just play something we all enjoy. But I've also I've been trying to experiment more with we played a game of A Quiet Year.
And
that was so much fun. And so I'm trying to find more games like that where it's RPG-ish. Or it's an RPG, just you're playing a community instead of a character,
Right, exactly.
And so stuff like that is really what's tickling my fancy these days.
Do you ever do any solo, like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire?
This is funny you should say that. A friend of the Go Indie Now network, who's on a ton of shows, she was actually a player. Jessica Nettles. Or was it Jessica? No, I think it was Jessica Nettles. I can't remember now. Maybe it was Vicky. Someone who has done a lot of stuff with Go Indie Now was talking about the 12-week year, and I really became entranced with that concept where it's basically you time box your year so that instead of saying next year I'm going to write 3 books, it's no, I'm going to write this book here, yada yada yada. Anyway, over each quarter, I want to craft a zine, totally written, and it will be laid out.
Right.
And I will release it digitally, but I do want to start getting some of these printed to take to events. Anyway, so the first one that I have coming out is a solo journaling game. It's called Seek Ye Small Gods in Hidden Places.
Nice.
And the idea is, as you're walking through your day, if you find some neat looking little abandoned corner, like a dark alleyway, or like this neat, abandoned mailbox or whatever, it just looks like this beautiful little abandoned part of the world. You imagine what small god has taken up residence there. And then there's part like that's the core function, is you go through and you just catalog these gods as you encounter them through your life.
Right.
But there is an element there where if you want to, you can create your own pantheon, your own personal pantheon, and it's designed to get you to be a little introspective, like mapping pantheons to like maybe events in your past that you want to kind of process.
I can lay out pretty good for other people, but for some reason when I do my own layouts, they're like, wait, but What am I doing here? Have I ever actually used this product before?
I feel like just using Affinity Designer to make each page on its own and then exporting them and putting them back together when I have the Affinity book publishing product that I should just learn how to use would probably,
Right.
But I'm much more comfortable with Designer, so I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see how it checks out.
Cool. Yeah, the bane of many a designer's existence.
Yeah.
So, being an indie writer has helped you as a game designer. How?
I'll say the first thing it did was literally the first novel I ever tried to write was because I had done so much world building on my first project. I was like, this really needs a book.
Right.
And now I will say that's when I learned that world building does not a book make. you have to have a plot.
You do have to have a plot, unless you're Tolkien's son. Then you have the Silmarillion. But
yeah. I think honestly the biggest thing that indie game design and like the interplay there, it really came from back before Twitter became the hellhole that it is.
Right.
I had gotten on there to promote myself as an author, and quickly realized that it was essentially just a bunch of authors following other authors, and no readers were on Twitter that I could find.
Yeah.
But I did find just this thriving indie game design space.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would have paid it nearly as much attention if I hadn't been going the indie route myself. And I think going indie writing kind of made me more receptive to indie tabletop publishing. And back and forth,
Right.
and then just the more you write, no matter what the words go to, just the better a writer you're eventually going to be. And so the game writing is just a different muscle that I can stretch. And just overall, I like to think it's maybe a better writer. We'll let the readers judge.
Well, okay, so I was going to turn the question on its head. So being a game designer has helped you as a writer. How? So, just the writing itself, writing more things has been a big help.
Yeah, I'll say, I actually just did a huge blog post about this today. How I ended up filling my war chest essentially for publishing. Now, to be clear, I did not set out with this in mind, but this is what happened. Before I started self-publishing, I had basically a couple grand in the bank from freelance game writing.
Okay.
And so I did not set out like, oh, I'm going to go on Fiverr and do freelance writing so that I can build up my war chest so I can publish this stuff. What happened was I got onto Fiverr I wanted to buff my game writing credentials. So I made an account on there specifically for world building for tabletop and video games. And because it was just such a huge variety of different style games that were coming in different genres, writing dialogue for a sci-fi RPG is worlds different from the writing you do for a post-apocalyptic NFT game.
Right.
Weird aside, here's how I knew that NFTs were a absolutely terrible idea.
Yeah.
They kept trying to hire me to write games for them. Like I did like 2 or 3, and I was like, what are these NFT things that just keep hiring me? And I did some research. Like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with that. But I just kept getting people trying to hire me to write a game for their NFT that they were rolling out. And it's like,
wow,
y'all are spending a lot of money on something real dumb. Something's not adding up. And then sure enough, it imploded.
It did.
But because like it was writing in so many different genres, like game writing, I don't know. I just think it really just improved my writing overall. Plus it gave me the funds I needed to not be in the hole on day one of publishing.
Right.
I didn't have to eat top ramen noodles for a month to afford an editor. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic, and that's good news for anybody. Getting if you're going to be a writer and game dev, getting some kind of writing gig will help with the game design stuff too, right? That can if you're looking if you're not going Kickstarter or backer kit, but you still want something that's going to look nice when it comes out, those freelance gigs will add up after a while.
Yeah, and it exposed me to different game types I didn't know were out there.
Yeah.
I got hired by a company that all they do is basically build Minecraft worlds with basically an RPG inside them.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know that was a thing. And they basically hired me as like, hey, we're building this world. We have this idea for a plot for it. Like just a broad strokes. Can you flesh this out into, a full-fledged thing? And I was unaware of that. Years ago, I actually got it was one of the first things I ever got hired to write in game design. And I wasn't actively doing game design at that point, but I got hired to write a phone app. It was basically a location-based, time-based, as you walked around the world. Like it was basically someone in this post-apocalyptic future had figured out a way to send messages to the past, and you were engaging with them, but there was like a time delay. So like you might get a message and then, they had to run to safety. So you wouldn't get another message for like 2 or 3 hours or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I didn't know that games like that existed. And I wrote one. I mean, none of the coding, let's be very clear. And so, that was neat, getting, I didn't know that there were NFT games. I don't know that there actually are NFT games because I never saw any of these actually come to production. But in theory, there could be one. So that was another thing that was just cool more on the design side, was just getting exposed to a bunch of different types of games that I probably wouldn't have stumbled into on my own.
Fantastic. That sounds great. How did you get into making one-page rules? Why one page?
How I got into it was through Twitter. There's a game challenge every year to design a game, a full RPG that's under 200 words. And it's judged. You send it in and they judge it. Spoiler, I didn't win.
No, I've never won that either. So
yeah, but it's a ton of fun. And so through that, through like looking that up and just seeing around that, I basically stumbled on to Grant Howlett, who is kind of the guy when it comes to one-sheet RPGs. All the biggest name ones he came up with for the most part. Honey Heist, The Witch is Dead. And The Witch is Dead is honestly, it's my favorite one-sheet RPG. It's the one I always run, if given the chance. And so getting exposed to that, and to me, it was perfect. It came to me at just the perfect time of my life. I think it was during COVID or like kind of early days of COVID. And it was one of those deals where I wasn't getting to play much. Our D&D group did bubble together, but even with that, we were all essential workers. So we could bubble to a degree, but every other week someone was getting sick or was exposed. So we weren't playing very much at all. And I've just always loved game design. Like even when I was a little kid, like a youth, I would design little terrible board games or try to, or I really would try and do CCGs a lot. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm a busy guy, new family that I'm becoming a part of with my now wife and kiddo. And this is the perfect way I can scratch an itch, game design. But the big thing was that I could complete it. I have folders full of half-made games. Because I get them to a point, and basically when it gets time to start playtesting them, I never do.
Right.
And so this was something that I could finish, and I didn't care if I never play tested it, because they're not that serious.
Right.
These
Right.
games are not designed with balance in mind. They're just supposed to be fun. And so, or I mean, some of them, I'm sure some people take them very seriously, but the Bob one sheet design principle is we don't take it that serious. And so just being able to finally chalk up some wins in that, here's a game I've completed. I can throw it up on itch. I can throw it up on Drive Through RPG. Zero expectations of making any money. Just it's out there.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not super happy with any of them now at this point, because they've been out a while, and I was like, oh, I could do that better. And so that's kind of what I'm deciding to do now. Like Seeky Gods in Hidden Places was a one sheet journaling RPG that now I'm going to expand into a full-fledged zine, but I'm just going to charge the same thing. I mean, the physical copy will cost money, but at most I want to charge $1. And if you don't have $1, if you email me, I will send it to you for free. I do this because I love it. Like I write books in hopes of one day being a full-time author. I design games because I just love the hobby and the craft, and just want to share that love with people.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. We really do. Let folks know where they can find you on the web, and where maybe they can find some of these one-sheet RPGs.
Yeah.
Well, one page for you is one side of a sheet, right? Or is it back and
Yes,
front?
it's one.
Okay.
That said, some of my one-sheet games, they're not all one-sheet games. I'd say 25 of them or so are one-sheet games. There are a few that I've designed that are, I have one that is a simple RPG set in the Paleolithic era that has some expansions. There's a Cthulhu expansion. There's a horror expansion, so that one's like a 10-page RPG. There's stuff like that in there as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so Tales by Bob is where you can find me. That's my website, talesbybob.com. All my social media is Tales by Bob. On itch, which is where I recommend you get my games, I'm Tales by Bob. And you can actually get all my games on itch in a bundle right now for $5. I just run that deal perpetually. Any game I have goes in that bundle, $5. And again, if you don't have $5, if you email me, I literally will send you the PDFs. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Hopefully corrupting the youth of the nation with one sheets.
Yeah.
Hey there. This is my quick guide to getting started with the Jubal County Saga. This is book 1. It's all about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction solving backwoods occult mysteries. It's got it all. Rednecks, mayhem, a goat, attack squirrels. It's wild. Okay. There are 6 books in the series. Here's book 2. Here's book 3. Here's book 4. Here's book 5. And you guessed it, here's book 6. But you're like, oh man, that's all the books. Maybe that's too much for me to carry. I got you, fam. This is books 1, 2, and 3. One self-contained omnibus. And then here's books 4, 5, and 6. Same deal, self-contained. Those 6 books make a self-contained arc. You can read those, and it's got everything you need within a good stopping point.
Howard Marsh is a lot of things. A liar, a thief, a poor man's wizard. He's a shoddily tattooed skin stretched over a too skinny body that's barely held together by the same drugs that are tearing his life apart. A cynic. His words are often as poison as the substances he takes to pass his days. A suicide attempt years in the making. He's the scion of a family with a history as rich as it is materially poor. He's the product of a miserable county with more dirt roads than paved, where poverty and loss is the order of the day.
It's always time to go indie now.
Zero! But you're dead!